Hi guys, version 1.1 has just been released, and with it there is a bunch of new content, including stuff like Qingyi who's been released, some new story, but most importantly, for those of you that are interested in combat, there's a new Inferno Reap aka Withering Garden combat activity that you can do, and today I want to go over some of the aspects of it, the features that you need to care about, and how to actually clear it. So first and foremost, if you're curious about how to unlock Inferno Reap, there will be a quest in the outpost area over here where you'll talk to, I believe it's Reno and a couple other characters that are around here. Long story short, there'll be a quest that'll ask you to do the intro for Inferno Reap, and that involves a pretty straightforward quest line where you have to go through, clear some enemies, but then you have your actual chance at participating in the Inferno Reap. Now, a couple things to know about Inferno Reap. If you didn't see the 1.1 livestream or didn't read anything about it online, it's basically just Nineveh, but with some different restrictions. As you see here on the side, it reads, you have 180 seconds for this time trial challenge where you need to do as much damage as possible to Nineveh, as opposed to surviving and completing and just beating the boss once. Nineveh enters overload activation, which increases the damage that she deals and takes. Furthermore, once you get to 60 and 30 seconds, the damage will increase. Most of this is just basically saying, hey, pick up the pace, start to do more damage, time is running out. And finally, the two big things you need to remember here is that when you beat up the vines or when you beat up the hornets, things that are basically spawned by Nineveh, you can actually extend the total time that you have for the challenge. The final thing that they include here is that when you participate in the Withering Garden core, you can actually obtain a specific Resonium kit, and this will basically be the buffs that you carry into the activity, which is going to be very, very important. Now, on that note, let me go over a couple things that you'll probably want to take when it comes to your Resonia. First and foremost, having multiple Resonia and not skimping out is definitely going to be your best choice, but also, as I'm sure you guys may be familiar with, you want to be doing the lower level stage so that you could do more side activities or side fights so that you can get more Resonias. As you can see here, one of the clears that I had for my 1111 clear only yielded me 21 Resonia because I didn't want to have to deal with all the random ads leading up to Nineveh, but once I returned and accepted a clear through Hollow Zero, it prompted me with the question of whether or not I wanted to keep this new Resonia loadout, and obviously since I have 32 here and I've got some really good ones here, I decided to accept. I do have a couple of recommendations for Resonias that you might want to pick up, and that is of course going to be the element damage related Resonias for your character. If you're playing Ellen, Freeze is pretty good. If you're playing Juyuan, Ether's pretty good, but ultimately things like the critical or the assist can also be very helpful. Now, getting some of the additional bang boos will also help, and although for this run I actually ended up taking Avocado Boo instead of something like another crit damage bang boo, I still think that I performed pretty well, and I'll show you a full run of how I performed later. There are a couple here that will probably feel pretty good, or you will probably remember to be pretty good based on your experience if you've ever fought Nineveh in Withering Garden, but there's probably one that I need to make a disclaimer for, and that's specifically for Shuttlecock or the dodge one where you gain agility and you also enter into Vital View for 4 seconds. Now the thing about this Resonia is that if you're fighting Nineveh normally where you don't have a time limit, the 4 seconds that you have is pretty much OP because you can just spam this as much as possible and you basically trivialize Nineveh if you're playing a melee character. However, because of the fact that the new Nineveh fight with Inferno Reap is actually timed, sometimes having Shuttlecock actually works against you. Now, if for whatever reason you end up dodging one of the various missiles that gets shot out at you during the fight, this doesn't stop the timer and the Vital View basically just ticks down for 4 seconds. And if Nineveh is in the sky shooting out these projectiles at you and you aren't able to hit them, well, unfortunately, you just wasted all of your time. Now, another big thing here is that if you're familiar with the Nineveh fight, you're probably also familiar with a lot of the dodge or the shield-based Resonia. However, given that this is a damage trial, I do recommend that you commit mostly to the elemental or the critical Resonia, simply because it's a damage trial, you can kill the boss multiple times, it's not about dodging or surviving. Now, on the topic of the character and in terms of what Nineveh has combat-wise, there are virtually no differences between the Nineveh fight of Inferno Reap and the Nineveh fight from Withering Garden. The boss does have break periods where the timer gets paused, and it basically allows you to restore your HP, kill some free vines to extend the duration of your fight, but ultimately that's the difference between Withering Garden's Nineveh and the Inferno Reap Nineveh. Now, in case you need a refresher on the mechanics, there are a couple of phases when it comes to Nineveh, including a phase where you have to hide behind some of the walls and they shoot out AoE, and a very common attack where she will fly into the sky, be untargetable and start shooting things at you. As you can see here, Nineveh is only level 60 here, and assuming you do have characters that are moderately leveled up, you can just eat some of the hits, and if you end up taking the vital view anyways, it might actually be in your best interest during some of these periods where they're not targetable to just eat the hit, or maybe swap to another character and take some damage on them instead of prolonging the phase for no reason. But plain and simple, the fight is not that difficult to actually beat, and that makes sense since it's no longer a you must survive fight, it's now a time trial similar to what you'd be doing in something like Shiyu defense. Now before I show you the actual fight, I do want to show you some of the stats and the investment of the characters that I have. As you see here on screen, I have my Juyuan with 40 crit rate, 220 crit damage, 3k attack. She is pretty much maxed in terms of stats, and of course, if you have your own DPS, you'll probably perform a little bit worse than this, but I'll explain why this is not that big a deal right after I finish my stats. Now, in terms of my equipment, I do have her signature. I'm running Chaotic Metal and Woodpecker Electro. I've got the Ether damage, I've got the crit damage, and I've also got attack percent. The second character I ended up using is Qingyi, and she was a great help for this, especially because of how much damage increase she provides. Now, for my Qingyi, she's level 50. She's got roughly 45 crit rate and 83 crit damage, which is going to be the build that I rock for most stunners. In terms of her investment, she's 7 across the board, and I do at least have C in terms of her core skill enhancement. Now, in terms of her build, I did end up using Shockstar Disco and Swing Jazz because I felt that her energy costs were pretty high, and I ended up using Ice Shade Teapot. The final character here is Nicole, and as usual, I focus quite hard on her energy regen. I was thinking about adding some Anomaly Mastery to her kit, but that's totally fine. She's definitely got less investment compared to all the other characters that I have. She's got C in her core skill enhancement, and for her gear, she is 2-piece Freedom Blue and also 4-piece Swing Jazz. The builds and all the different variations and the commitment or the investment that I have to characters can vary, and you will still perform quite well, especially since this is a time trial and you can always mix and match how you want to play depending on your account performance. But now we have to mention one final thing before we actually get into the fight, which is talking about the rewards. Now, since this isn't Shiyu defense or the typical Hollow Zero rewards, there are actually a couple of achievements or tasks that you have to complete in order to receive your rewards. Now, to be clear, the rewards are great. They added Denny's back. Thank you, ZenlessZoneZero. The additional Denny's is super helpful, but in terms of what you need to do, you need to kill some hornets, you need to kill some vines, and you also need to just play it for the first time. These are all cumulative goals. You don't need to kill 32 vines in one go. You don't need to kill 15 hornets in one go. And this is similar to what you're going to see in the Forged in Battle achievement list. Now, of course, you have 130 million, 160 million, 200 million damage done, which is really unrealistic to do in one run, to be completely honest. But as you see here, there are also really good rewards here. But the final thing that we need to talk about is that there is an actual more difficult activity that you need to complete or task that you need to complete, and that's doing a specific amount of damage in one run. For some of you, this might not be that possible, especially because doing 25 million damage to Nineveh in a single Inferno Reap will probably be something that you likely need at least a level 50 or 60 DPS to complete. But just keep in mind that this is a reward that you need to look out for. And as you'll see in the run that I end up completing, I do end up doing north of 38 million damage with a fully kitted out Juyuan, though she doesn't have any constellations, and neither does my Qingyi. However, ultimately, that is going to be the goal here. The 25 million damage is probably the hardest thing to actually complete. Otherwise, it's just a commitment to clearing out the content, and truthfully, it's kind of fun to do, so not that big a deal. It's more content for you combat lovers. I'm a big fan. Now, without further ado, my Inferno Reap run. Enjoy. Anyways, guys, that's going to be it for this video. Thank you again for watching. If you enjoyed, make sure to like, comment, turn on the notification bell, and subscribe. I know this is a little bit different of a video. It wasn't a guide for a specific character, but I thought it would be appropriate since it's a new kind of activity, and you do need to prepare yourself a little bit if you want to perform well, especially with the Rizonia. Anyways, thanks again for watching. If you want to check out the rest of my socials for more content like this, feel free to do so. I have a Twitch, Twitter, Discord, TikTok, YouTube, etc. Thanks again for supporting, guys. I'll see you on the next one. Stay safe, stay healthy. Good night.